Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it is a Wednesday, and this is Chris from Cypher Sigma Screen Time. So welcome to my channel if you are new. If you've just clicked on this video, yes, I talk about movies and everything movie-related series and films. And on these, or this specific video, and this video set every other Wednesday, I basically give you an overview of what I have been watching, physical media or streaming, except obviously new movies, because that is at the weekend. So what we've had here, so can I get it? So this is everything I have been watching the past 2 weeks. So quite a lot. We flip it up the other way to basically give you an overview of what I've been done. And there is one streaming series as well I've managed to watch. So let's get into it. So first up, we have the movie Gladiator. So this is one I recently picked up. It was an upgrade. Haven't seen it. Second time watching it, obviously have seen the sequel one recently, and I bought this in a set because I wanted one film, and I had this on, I thought, for £1. I think it's £1.25 or £1.12. This cost me not a lot. Really enjoyed this movie the second time over. Forgot a lot of stuff. For some reason, I thought his wife and his son were held captive, and how it links to the second film, and obviously I got confused there. Did really enjoy how it played out for the most part, except for, I don't know, rewatching it now, I was a little bit, when he dies quite easily, is a bit of a shame in a way, but I think that's kind of how this story is meant to portray, you know, like this fallen hero at the end of the day, that he's fallen once, and you know, his essentially not redemption, but the way his life, he wants to get back to his wife and his daughter, but obviously getting revenge for obviously the people that, which he kind of does at the end. So the story is complete, so it makes total sense to me and stuff like that. But you know, it's like when you have these heroes and you build them up, you don't want them to die. Specifically in the way he was kind of stabbed, and then it's a shame that he wasn't kind of, I don't know, having him being injured and that, I get it, it makes the fight a bit more better, but I would have loved there maybe a bit more intricacy to the fight. Just my personal preference, but still really enjoy it. Glad to upgrade it and glad to have it in the series. So next up was one of my what's left to watch in my series. No, it wasn't. This is one I picked up. So this is Chasing Mavericks. So as it says, it's based on a true story. So essentially you have this young lad. The film starts as he's a young kid. He comes from a very broken home. And he wants to be a surfer, and obviously in the beginning you see he can't really surf. He does kind of take a friend into Jared Butler's character, who is a surfer, quite a good one, and then they kind of there's a little bit of link, and this lad grows up to become quite a good surfer, but wants to surf like this, like the highest waves they have, and obviously then he manages to convince Jared Butler to train him, and this all culminates in him kind of having his shot at being there. Then you find out the true story, and this is the thing, I really enjoyed this movie. It's really like heartfelt, but it's really sad that obviously the young lad playing here, he's meant to be playing a 15-year-old, because that's how we got 14, 15-year-old, which obviously looks a lot older, because of his 7 years after the events of this that is based on, he actually died in real life, diving in another country. So very sad. 22-year-old had gone, and he seemed like a nice lad who'd come from a broken home and background, and something. But yeah, it is a really enjoyable story. It's just sad that then the person who this film was made out of, obviously, is no longer around and no longer to enjoy this, and the notoriety and everything else that came with it. But so next up is Dune Part 2. So yes, this is one that I really enjoyed the first one. I got a special edition of the first movie. I went to cinema and I wasn't too impressed with the second one. To say I wasn't impressed, it was in, I am a person who has my own free will about stuff, and I like a lot of stuff, as you will see on this channel, and it versus stuffing. But I do find sometimes when you are surrounded with, I mean, this movie came out and it took me, I think, a week or two to see it, and just everything around me was like, it's amazing. It was so full on. It's like, it kind of was almost overpowering. And for me, I'm like, well, I want to go and make my opinion. And all the way throughout it, as I said, I just felt pressurized to absolutely like it. And that instantly made me not like it. So this is where this is 2023, I think it is, it came out, 24, yeah, because we're in 26. So obviously I went away, gave it a year and a half, got it for Christmas, and I finally watched it, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I did think it is a good continuation of the story. Again, I still have problems with him, but I understand the reason why. I look forward to the third film if we do get it. Um, Definitely the first one still reigns over this one. I think the first one is a better movie in my eyes. But it's still a good movie, and it obviously continue. And I think once the third movie hopefully gets released and I watch that, I think it will be across the board a really good trilogy of movies, really solid work done across the board from all actors and actresses and the story and how it fits together, and very good homage to the original movie based on the books. So that is June Part 2. So next up is another upgrade that I got a little while ago. One I hadn't really watched in a long time. It's gone. My wife had never seen this, and it's sort of movie she really likes. So we sat down and watched it. Essentially, it is a young girl who was kidnapped. She managed to escape, or be the only escapee of it. She lives a very kind of recluse life, a very routine, very nervous person. She goes out one night, comes back, and her sister is missing. Essentially, she believes that her sister has been kidnapped by this killer. Everyone believes she's kind of having a mental breakdown, and essentially then you follow her story trying to get it. A little far-fetched in places, yes, but still enjoyable. I remembered a few bits from it, which did come to light. So it was quite good. I remembered that stuff, but still a really enjoyable movie. I think I enjoyed it the first time. I really liked Amanda Seyfried. I think watching the Housemaid around Christmas time, I think she's maybe a little bit of an underrated actress. In all fairness, I think she does really, really well. I know her. I don't want to put people complain about her eyes and how she looks, and I don't think that's a problem. I don't see that. I think she's, for the job she is in, she's a nice looking young lady. And, she is a very good actress, and I think she needs to be commended for that. Whether it'll make me watch Mamma Mia or not, who knows? And I've never seen it. So next one is one that I have watched. I watched it with my wife, but never owned. So we went aboard. We're a big fan of escape rooms. We've done loads. We've managed to escape every single one. I got locked I did one with my work team many years ago on a different continent, and that's the only one I have think. But I think it's like we've got 20 or 30 escape rooms, different companies, and we've never been locked in. So we love the sort of this, even though it's a bit of horror and not her cup of tea. She does actually really enjoy this movie. So we bought this, really enjoyed it, really watching it. I hope they would make a third, but who knows? I don't think there is. There was plans. It was all based on how financial successful. It did do quite well, but then there's been nothing on this for like 3 or 4 years, 5 years almost now, because it's 2021. So very unlikely to get a third one. But who knows? But do enjoy that. As I say, if you kind of like the horror but escape rooms. So next one up, we have a one that is new to collection. So I bought this, it turned up, and then I watched it, and it is The Good Boy. So one of my top 10 movies of last year. Thoroughly enjoyed this movie and thoroughly enjoyed this. Now, if you love this movie, or if you like this movie, I would definitely recommend this. Now, this has a behind the scenes, but it's only under 5 minutes long. Definitely worth watching. So it explains some of the logic of how they do this series and or this film and how it was shot. It took them a long time to shot it. It was shot in their own house. It was shot with their own dog, and she's not an actress, Indy, named after Indiana Jones. And essentially, they bring the director of this. I think it's his first directorial debut. Essentially, he shows you that back in the day, I assume early 1900s, based on it, there was a black and white figure of this face. It is very neutral looking, and it says when you are presented with a kind of neutral looking person, if you are then presented with a secondary image, the secondary image leads you to kind of influence what the first image is representing. So because you have a neutral image and you think it's like that, they then showed you some examples. They said, well, when it was presented with a second image of an empty bowl, people believed that the person was actually hungry, because obviously they have the mental image of somebody who's not any emotion and an empty bowl. You kind of make a connection, which I thought was quite interesting. They then showed you the man, and then they had obviously a dead person, like a coffin, and then he was. People thought that person was sad. So what they've done with Indy in this is they have pictures. They filmed Indy looking at stuff. Um, very expressionate dog like it didn't look and do, and then what they do is the next image that you see is a ghosty presence in, you know, kind of how this black image is being, and because you see this black dark image, you then have the kind of the sense that she is scared and that she is seeing something supernatural. Now they show this, and I'm sorry if I'm ruining behind the scenes, but they show this and work in theory, and then they play you a clip where Indy looks into the corner of the room and the music and everything else, and then the figure kind of starts to appear, and obviously it does. They then play you how they filmed it, and she's in the corner and they've got a squeaky toy and it's going, Indy, Indy, and she doesn't look, she just kind of looks like a playful dog as you would. She doesn't look scared, and I thought that was very good in that notion, I say, and it's very interesting that that was given. I would have liked to seen it more behind the scenes, but because of the low budget and stuff, I think they were probably limited to what they could put on. But very, very great film. Like, yeah, yes, I am a bit biased because I love dog movies. I'm not the biggest horror fan, but I think how this was shot and how this comes across is a great film. If you're wrong, if you feel I'm wrong, let me know in your comments, but obviously that is my opinion. So next up we have Drive Hard. So John Cusack, this was a one I got in the 4 set because I wanted to get with Gladiator and Underworld movies. And essentially it is Thomas Jane is a struggling driving instructor. He used to be a Formula One kind of driver. He works for his company, and on this day, John Cusack hires him to teach him to drive, essentially then making him become his getaway driver. And the two form a bond. It is set in Australia. It is very low budget as it comes across. There are people obviously after him and stuff like this. There is a biker gang and that is kind of people that they owe money to and stuff. But they kind of have this friendship and it kind of all builds together. I did enjoy it. It was a good watch. Don't know if I'd really rate it 4 stars. I think if this was given a better budget and maybe some of the supporting cast were better actors, I think it would have actually been a really, really good film. But I really enjoyed it, so I'll definitely keep this in the collection. Big fan of John Cusack. Anyway, then we go on to then we go. So this is in my watch order, so you'll notice that there are a few gaps, and there is one that is in the wrong place. So I'm going to do these 5 kind of together. So first we have the Underworld movies. So some of these were given to me because I won a kind of raffle thing from Angelo from the Pang's Wacky World of the Pang. So rewatching this, I actually thoroughly enjoyed the first movie. It was great. Like Raz, the really deep voiced Lycanons, very much has a, you can put this almost into the same realm as you would the Resident Evil movies, but I think this one has a bit more of a core foundation. The fact that you have werewolves and vampires and the difference between those. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed how this works out and how it's shot and how it looks in the action movies. Really, really great. Then we follow it up with the sequel to it, so Underworld Evolution. This is where you then have the kind of half-bred character from Scott Speed, who then joins Selena, and then this brings up the only left elder vampire, who is essentially the Corvinus, which is what Michael is from, is basically when there was a elder eternal person. He had 2 children. I want to say it's Michael and Victor. And basically one was bitten by a bat, one was bitten by a wolf, and that's how you get vampires, and that's how you get werewolves, and that's how it all started, and that's how the legend is. This goes back to it. You get to meet the elder, you get to see Michael kind of on a rampage, Victor on a rampage, sorry, and then him trying to free his brother. Again, really, really enjoyed this. Obviously, you have a lot of flashbacks to some of the characters from 1 who are no longer with us due to the story. It's interesting to start to feel those plot points up and them linked together. But yeah, thoroughly really enjoyed 1 and 2. there was a few little bits that waned a little bit for the most part, but I mean, they don't, these movies are in like an hour and a half, an hour and 40. I think the first one is 2 hours. Yeah, it's just over 2 hours, but it kind of is setting up the lore. So I think it deserves that time. So it takes us on to Underworld, Rise of the Lycans. So this is a prequel. This was greenlit when they were going to do the second one. Essentially, you have one of the characters of the werewolf clan, quite higher up. And then you have, it looks like this is Selena's character, but it's not. So the actress who plays this lead, which is essentially the daughter of Bill Nighy's character, she was the actress who was the runner-up to play Kate, who played Selena, who Kate Beckinsale wanted to do. So they kind of brought her back from the casting section to be the daughter of this. Again, it works really well. The one thing more than anything that this trilogy sets, and I really enjoyed this backstory, and it kind of all felt like it went together, even though this is a kind of back in the past, it's rated not as good. I still think this is a really, really good movie. But Martin Sheen, I am thoroughly impressed with him. I've seen Frost Nixon, I've seen a few other bits he's in, but I've never really seen him. And going back and watching this, going, oh my God, that is Martin Sheen, but he's got like a goatee and long hair. And obviously I didn't realise, obviously he dated and had a kid with Kate Beckinsale before this. But he just fits the role so well. And the fact that I really enjoyed his character from one, I'm glad he got kind of his own spin-off, so to speak. And again, this is kind of them using spin-offs and stuff to tie everything in. So as we start as a free trilogy, I actually think is a great trilogy. I would happily watch this all day long. And I would say this is a better trilogy than the first 3 Resident Evil movies. Again, personal opinion. So then we took on to the world of Underworld Awakening. So this is where you have in the future, so essentially you have Selena, Michael trying to escape. There's an explosion. He supposedly gets killed. She gets captured, and then she's in 11 years later, she's in this lab, and kind of time's gone on. Most of the Lycans and werewolves are kind of outlawed, killed off, but she's linked to this other captive, and she doesn't know his. Turns out it's her daughter, because she was pregnant, and there are links to this. It's a very chaotic movie in the fact that they kind of start off tying to the underworld, but then they have this time gap and they try and move a lot away from stuff. And I think it takes a lot of the core essence of like the old households and everything else. You know, the kind of foundation that was Underworld, because it takes Selena out of this world too much, and then you have the daughter and everything else, and she's the half-breed and all this stuff. Even though like Michael is the first half-breed and stuff, and now she's the second one, they've only just been like kind of hunted. There's never ever been anything that kind of ties, you know, like this will wipe out the world, even though they kind of do hint at it. It's just kind of another enemy, and you know, it's kind of, there's now 3 sections, you know, werewolves, vampires, and these kind of crossbreeds. Now you have kind of this evil scientist, and you have this evil experiment of a kind of mutated big Lycanon, which I really, really enjoyed. That again felt a little bit Resident Evil like, but I thoroughly really enjoyed that kind of him in the background. But he's absolutely massive. And obviously you get to see some small clans, and then you get to meet this new character and stuff like this of kind of the later ones. And yeah, it just, I don't know, it just, because it took it out and then it kind of touches on a little bit and there's a time gap and everything else. And the daughter, I felt it's very chaotic. Now, reading up on this, and this is something I may do a retrospective and the whole thing of, Scott Speedman never returned for this movie. Now, in IMDb and a lot of places, they very, very rarely mention why he never returned. The story went through many rewrites, different directors, different production teams. This was almost sounds like a chaotic mess. And when you watch the movie, you kind of feel it. I think the fans turned up for this one, which is why it did okay enough to greenlight the 5th one. But even Scott Speedman wasn't necessarily needed, even though they kind of show him, but it's not him, it's someone else, and they kind of kill him off straight away, but then he's not dead and stuff like this. It kind of feels like, it feels like it's definitely been rewritten a lot of times, and this chaotic nature, I think, comes out too much, and because of the distance from what the lore was in the first 3 movies, I can see why people were like, yeah, I'm not really liking this. Hasn't been done well. If it was maybe the overall story was kept the same, solid, but they put a bit more work into it, I think it could have come across better. And then this obviously took you to Blood Wars, which obviously had the opening image of her, which she only looks like for like the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie. Again, you then kind of puts you back into the world that, and this additional character, like there are still these covens out there. There's not many, and you have these Lycanons. Another Lycanon now is kind of a big boss guy. He's again out there hunting them, and again it's kind of them trying to retrace their steps. But then you have kind of these kind of ghosty type vampires and stuff, and again it's kind of like, oh, we didn't do very well with the fourth. Let's retrack. Let's try and bring a bit back of what more is. We kind of mention a daughter, you know, and everything else. And obviously they say, and then you find out, obviously, Scott's Michael character has been killed off and stuff like this. Great. It was nice to type some of the things. Really poorly done, I think. It just, see, as I say, and this, again, with the whole Scott Speedman stuff, it definitely feels to me like these are really, really good. And then this just started to go downhill a little bit, like with the storyline and everything else. And I don't know. I said it's not revealed why he didn't want to do it, why maybe he didn't do it, maybe he was fired, maybe something came out, maybe the studio didn't want him, maybe he was wanted too much money, maybe he just had other commitments. But the fact that there is not a lot of transparency. I mean, I say the fourth movie that his character is in, but he isn't in. Very rarely on the internet does it even mention that he's not in it. And that to me seems like something went on, like something behind the scenes. I think of maybe two, maybe there was a lawsuit and maybe something happened. He sued a company and they were like, fine, we'll do it, and then write his character out. And that's why they have written his character out and not recast him. And then that caused issues. I don't know, with the rewrites. But yeah, very strange. I mean, if you know more, if you've come across them, I'm really interested to know about the Underworld ones, as I say, because there are rumours there may be a sixth movie. No, I think you would have to be very careful of how you place that. I mean, to me, I would finish off the story because, to be honest, there are a few open things with her daughter and that, but that's just me. So next up, one to tick off my anime list is Code Geass, season 1 and season 2. So this is one AJ managed to pick up for me. So thank you again, AJ. I know it was probably the best part of a year ago. You picked it up. You saw it in the shop. I think it was £22. This is rated as one of the top 100 anime series and movies. So that's why I had to have it in a collection. Very, very interesting. So you have basically what is called Britannia and what is called Japan. So Japan was Japan. It got taken over by the Britannian forces and everybody that was in Japan kind of went into hiding. The main character, this guy, he was a royal, and basically he goes, his name is Lelouch. He then kind of goes under a different last name, and him and his sister, who are part of the royal family, who are like quite close to being king and queen, are kind of hidden. Because his mum is killed, and basically because of what happens with the Britannians, he wants to get his own back. Jewett, basically him and, that's a school friend that you meet later on, but essentially him and his friend go around kind of doing chess games where he cheats people out of it because he's very, very super clever. When one goes wrong, when some basic rebels try to break free, they capture a truck which this lady's on, and essentially she releases something called Geass, which is why it's called Code Geass, and it looks like a bit like a bird. It goes into his eye, and essentially he can make any person do anything once, and it is him then becoming this character called Zero, and basically he basically fights for the rebels, and he wants to free Japan for his sister from the Britannians and stuff like this. And I've only ever seen up to season 1 because I thought the end of season 1 was quite made sense, but it actually did really, really well. There's a lot of change. People change where they sit and stances, and it is very a kind of bittersweet ending in my eyes. It's a really good ending, and it makes sense, and it gets clever, and it's all kind of invokes the whole war and politics, and and people oppressing another sort of people and what they feel and rebelling and how you would treat that and who's right and who's wrong. And then what it does is throws in loads of mech fights, which I really enjoyed. So I really enjoyed the series. Glad to tick it off. So next up, we will go to the online series. So this is Runaway, so Harlan Coben. So me and my wife are big Harlan Coben fans. We've watched almost everything that he has released. And this is the latest Netflix series, which I think was released near the end of last year. I think it's James Nesbitt. Essentially, you have a dad, Minnie Driver, his wife, and their two kids. They technically have three. One has run away, and he basically goes looking for her. He comes across her. He's confronted by her, what he believes to be her boyfriend, druggy boyfriend, that she kind of left college for, and she's been running away. And essentially, his search for his daughter. The guy who she's with gets killed at some point because he beat him up early that day when he intersects him. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. You have the police involved, and then you have some killers that go around, and there's a lot of connection of this. People get injured in hospital and everything. It's very clever. It deals a lot with adoption and a lot of themes like this. So just, I know, speaking with friends and stuff like this, sometimes this, stuff like this isn't spoken about a lot in real world. So like adoption and stuff like this. So maybe if this is a bit of a trigger, it's not necessarily for you. And because it's a very crucial part of the plot, just to let you know. But I really enjoyed the series. It was very clever. There are, I guess, some bits I didn't guess. Some bits there were some good revelations, good twists. It wasn't by far a perfect series. It was a good series and enjoyable one. I think it's 8 episodes, so it does keep you. It probably take you the best part of a week to watch if you paced yourself with like 2-3 episodes a night. But that is Runaway by Harlan Coben on Netflix. So then we get to the last 5. So first up, my wife, she's a big fan of Billy Connolly, and she mentioned the movie Mrs. Brown, so this is what we bought. So I went out and bought this, and we watched this. Not really my cup of tea looking at it, but watched it. But essentially, it's Queen Victoria, where her husband dies. She's in mourning for 3 years, and basically, Mr. Brown, he is or was her husband's kind of horse ridery person. He gets brought to Balmoral, which is where she has been inconsolable and kept away from. Essentially, they build up this friendship. It's a good movie, very sad movie. I'm not going to give too much away on this. I really, really enjoyed it. Surprised, really enjoyed it. So it doesn't kind of make sense why, and doesn't really explain why it's called Miss Brown. But I advise you to watch the movie and then Google it, because I don't want to give anything away. But yeah, totally makes sense. But a really, really good movie. And there is supposedly Victoria and Abdul is supposedly a follow-up with Jane Judi Dench, so I probably will buy that. So down to 4. So 1, my uncle and my aunt had played about they like musicals and stuff like this, and they said Sunshine Over Leaf. So this is the musical based off the music of the Proclaimers, 500 Miles. And it is essentially 2 army guys. They involved in an IED. Unfortunately, most of their battalion die, and then they basically go home, returning to their lives. And there is a lot of stuff going on. One of the lads who has a girlfriend, you find out her dad had a one-night stand many years ago and has got another daughter, and this all comes out as he's celebrating his 25th anniversary with his wife. The other guy, he has a few problems, is set up with their friends. And it's them trying to navigate their relationship, and all these relationships are having kept it hectic. And it's just what happens in life, of some work, some don't work, some give you some future. So it's just kind of, just incorporating the music. Now, I didn't really know the Proclaimers music. I didn't mind it at all. It was quite a fun watch. It's something I'd happily watch again. Not something I'd necessarily rush. I mean, it's only an hour and 40 altogether, so it's only like an hour and a half, so it's quite easy going. The guy in this who plays a dad is also from I Swear, so I quite really like that he was in it and stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And one of the young lads is from what's the war movie that was out? Like 1973 or something. Is it something like that? The one where he's running through the field and they've got all the explosions. It's one take. The main guy's in that, and he's quite good as well. Next up, we have one of the other ones that I bought out of this 4-pack. So this is a Battleship. So Alex Gargard, Mariana, Taylor Kirst, and Liam Neeson. A very kind of cheesy army from the mindset of Transformers, or the company that bought you Transformers, obviously have tried to turn Battleship into a game, but more or less it's aliens versus the army, and you have this army game. They all come together, two brothers. One's a rebel, doesn't do anything. One's kind of upstanding. In between this games, you find out that they've been sending signals out into Earth. Unfortunately, this kind of comet comes to Earth, crashes into the sea between them, and what it actually is, it sets up a field and they all get trapped in it, and it's the army people that are set in different positions, some on a boat, some on them trying to stop these aliens from invading, because there's a bit of a time limit and stuff like this. I enjoy it. It's kind of one of those action movies you just turn off your brain and just enjoy the action for what it is. It's kind of like very Michael Bay special effects and stuff, and Transformers, you can see the influences there. And I enjoyed it for what it was. It's, I say never going to win awards. I do enjoy Taylor Kirst, obviously big fan of John Carter of Mars. But there we go. Final two. So first off, we have the film Alexander. We had the director's cut. So this is almost 3 hours long, and this basically depicts the story of Alexander, played by the older version, played by Colin Farrell. Essentially, Angelina Jolie is his mum, and his dad is Val Kilmer. His dad is a bit of a nuisance, a bit of a nightmare, doesn't believe his son could do anything. His son kind of grows up to be a kind of clever mathematician. He leads the armies. He does a lot of taking over the modern world, except for you kind of have this jungle region continent that they then have to, or they could tackle. He's kind of transfixer. He has to keep attacking, and kind of the logic that his mum has given into him, that he's a bit skeptical and stuff. You have Jared Leto in as his kind of gay lover friend, but they're not lovers. He obviously gets a wife, Rosario Dawson, even though he is gay and stuff like this, and he tries to hide these bits but doesn't kind of hide these bits. He then believes as time goes on some of his friends betrayed him, and it's maybe his delusions. And then basically it ends up with essentially him almost being killed in this massive battle and deciding that he needs to go home, and then that's his story. It was good. It was educational. I enjoyed it. It's one I would never revisit, unfortunately. So this will leave the collection and say, glad to watch it. 3 hours. It's quite a long movie about it. As I say, it's an enjoyable movie, but there's nothing that stands out that would make me want to ever go back and rewatch it again. I've watched it. I've learned a few little things, and I'm a little bit more educated. Obviously, it is a film though, but it's slightly based off true events. But there isn't any more. As I say, rewatching it again would benefit me, I see in no way, so that's why I will leave it there. So then the final one up, which AJ will be happy for, and this is Novocaine. So this is, I think, one of his highest movies of 2025, and essentially you have Kane. What's the character's name now? Nathan Kane. So he has a condition which supposedly is a proper genetic condition where he cannot feel pain. This means that everywhere he goes, stuff has on handles and stuff like this. He can't eat anything solid. And while he is working, there's a lady at work that he really likes, and due to a kind of altercation, she invites him out for lunch, which then leads to a date, which then seems like everything's gone really, really well. The next day at work, he obviously is living on cloud nine, had a really good time. And then these three Santa Claus burst in and rob the bank. They blow the manager's head off and kidnapped his what would be girlfriend and not divine it. He decides that he needs to do something about it, and he goes on his hunt to follow these three criminals to try and stop them. Obviously having the kind of superpower, not superpower is, and he goes into these silly kind of events, like one of the guys that he follows back to their gets back to their house for a set of events. He's booby trapped the house, he gets shot in the leg and all this stuff, but obviously he doesn't feel anything of it. Leading up to him going back to the place where the criminals are, or more or less the last criminal is, and then you find out that last criminal, his girlfriend, is actually the criminal's sister, and she was basically kind of setting them all up, but she's decided that she doesn't want to do doesn't want to go run away with all the money that was nicked, and actually wants to stay with him. There's a battle. He wins out. Her brother's kind of killed, not killed. I can't quite remember now. He's injured. He's taken away, and no, he's killed. And then basically he's taken away in an ambulance, and then you have it that he's still in love with this girl, and he meets her at an open time or visiting time at prison, and something that they're going to be together at the end. So what did I think about that? So AJ will be really happy. I really actually enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a very good, solid movie. It had some funny moments. It had some silly moments in it. I actually, the story probably has been done a little bit before, but I didn't see the twist of her being kind of linked in with a criminal until it was too late from the thing, so I didn't predict that. But I really enjoyed it. Quaid is quite a great, Jack Quaid is quite a great actor, very much plays a little bit, I would say his character is similar in ways to his character from The Boys a little bit, where he's quite weak, he's reserved and something, and then obviously he starts to go a bit above and beyond as time goes on. It was really nice with his character actually. The thing that more, not only did he kind of the love was true, and you know that he is a solid person, and he kind of has this tattoo on him, and there's a link to that, and I really thought that was quite a nice touch. That at the very end of it, he kind of it's him having a condition and having his life kind of ruled by his condition, and by the end of it, he actually learns that it doesn't, and there is some things he can do, and it's like when he's eating his pie at the end, and he's eating, and he knows he's not necessarily going to chew on his tongue, but that's kind of where he's been for most of the story, and it's really good. Wouldn't necessarily say it'd make my top 10, but it'd probably make my top 20, if that makes sense. So that has been a look what I've been watching these past 2 fortnights. So quite a long video, apologies. Hope everybody has kept awake for this. If you've enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. It really does help me and the channel out. Otherwise, I've been Chris from Cypher Signal Screen Time. Hope you've enjoyed this video and hope you're having a lovely week, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.